What's up guys, Nathan here, and today I'm going to teach you 9 easy ways to tell if someone is bluffing you at the poker table. Use these simple clues next time you play to find out whether they have it or not. Let's jump right into it. Alright guys, so I'm going to give you several poker hand examples today and 9 ways that work both in a live poker game in a casino and also online to be able to tell if they're bluffing you or not. Alright guys, so counting down from 9 to 1, number 9 is check raising on a paired flop. Now guys, this is such a common, easy to read bluff that amateurs in particular make all the time, and I'm going to tell you exactly why right now. So don't fall for this. So let's give you an example hand here. You raise up 2 red sixes, 6 of hearts, 6 of diamonds in middle position, and one of these recreational players, aka a fish, calls you in the big blind. So guys, we know that their range is going to be very wide in this situation. They're going to be playing as much as 50% of all of their hands. Talked about these players in depth before. There's no point in even trying to put them on a range at this point. So the flop comes down with the 8-8-4 paired flop. This is a rainbow flop, meaning 3 different suits, so there's no flush draw. So we're of course going to be last act in this situation. So we're assuming that the recreational player checks to us. We're going to make our standard continuation bet on this flop, and lo and behold, our fishy friend decides to raise. So what should you be doing in a spot like this? Well guys, this is a very, very easy call for the simple reason that they are representing absolutely nothing on this board. Let's look at this board, 8-8-4. What are they really telling us they have on this board? An 8? Well, it's really hard to hit trips, guys. It doesn't happen very often in poker, and most people are going to slow play that hand, especially recreational players like this. They love to slow play big hands, so it's very unlikely that they would actually raise if they actually have an 8 here. And besides that, there's really nothing else on this board. There is the off chance this player did flat call us pre-flop with a hand like pocket tens. These players will do that from time to time, but there's so many more times here where a recreational player is just going to take a 4, for example, ace 4, and decide to randomly raise here, or just ace high or king queen or something because they're on tilt. And I'm going to talk about that later, the fish on tilt, that's coming up. So guys, it's a very, very simple situation to just flat call. We never want to be re-raising in a spot like this. Move on to bluffing sign number 8, that somebody's bluffing you at the poker table, and that is talking too much, aka false bravado. Guys, this is a very classic physical tell in poker, which is acting strong when you're actually weak. This is something that amateur players once again do all the time, and this can apply online as well if you actually use the chat box in online poker. I personally don't look at it too much because there's a lot of people that are angry about bad beats and stuff. Perhaps if I take their money, they're not too happy with me and they call me some bad names, so I don't actually look at the chat very much in online poker, but sometimes you can get this as well. Guys, bottom line, if somebody's talking too much, oftentimes really what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it sound like they're confident. They might even try taunting you at the table, saying, oh, I know you'll never call me, just lay your hand down, just get out of the way. Guys, this is almost always just a sign of weakness. This is what bad players like to do. And I will say, I'm talking about recreational players here. I'm not talking about really good advanced pros. They actually will use something called a false tell in a situation like this, where they know that you know that talking a lot means weakness, so they'll actually talk a lot when they have the big hand, and they will be silent when they're bluffing. It's called a false tell, but only the best players in the world and really high stakes pros are typically able to do this. The vast majority of players in small and mid stakes games, if they're talking a lot, they usually don't have it. And by the way, yes, the reverse does apply as well. If they get all silent and their hands shaking when they put those chips in the middle, guys, it's often the nuts. Get out of there. That's when they got the pocket aces. When all of a sudden out of the blue, they zip it and they're all serious. Move on to bluffing sign number 7, which is acting too quickly. Once again, it's another sign of bluffing that also applies in both live poker and online poker. And this again is often done by our fishy friends, the recreational players. Guys, what you need to remember is that most people who really have a strong hand in poker, they want to think about it for a while. They want to think about how they're going to extract the most chips out of you. So often, when somebody makes a really quick sort of bet into you, especially against the flow of action, and what I mean by that is when you raise pre-flop, which is something I suggest you do the vast majority of the time, they suddenly just bet quickly into you on the flop. Guys, this is a classic tell of a weak hand. Once again, they didn't take the time to think about it. And most players, if they have a really strong hand, they're going to take a second or two to just think it through a little bit. Do I really want to bet here? Do I want to check raise them? What amount do I want to bet? Guys, if somebody bets quickly, especially a big amount, it's almost always a recreational player with some sort of middling pair, top pair bad kicker, or nothing at all. Just laugh, call, and play the hand accordingly. All right, so sign number 6 that somebody is bluffing you is a raise flop percentage that is 20% or more. Now guys, raising the flop too much is a classic sign of bluffing at the poker tables for the simple reason that nobody can have a hand all that often. As I mentioned a lot in these videos, by the way, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss my new poker strategy videos, is that with a random hand in poker, you're only going to make a pair on the flop 1 out of 3 times. And that can be any pair, by the way, bottom pair, middle pair, top pair. So if somebody is raising you on the flop 20% of the time, 30% of the time, we know that they have a lot of weak hands, and often they're just doing it with some sort of weak draw, bottom pair, or nothing at all. If you play online poker, the easiest way to see this is just to use a program like Poker Tracker. I'll have links for that in the description below. This is one of the key stats that I always have on my screen, is somebody's raise flop percentage. If I see 20% or more, I know they're bluffing. I'm going to call or sometimes re-raise. Again, play the hand accordingly. Moving on to sign number 5 that somebody is trying to bluff you, and that is checking their 3-bet percentage by position. Now, once again, guys, this is a little bit more online poker focused. I'm going to have more coming up, by the way, for live poker on this list. But basically, again, if you're using a program like Poker Tracker, again, links in the description, I often will look at their 3-bet percentage by position. What I mean by that is I'm going to put the chart on the screen for you right now for the positions at the poker table. A lot of times players, especially in small and mid-stakes games, will be very unbalanced in where they choose to 3-bet, aka re-raise you before the flop. For example, they will have something like a 3-bet percentage of 30% on the button and only 5% in the big blind. We don't need to be any kind of rocket scientist to realize that they're bluffing here a lot on the button, and when they're in the big blind, they often have the nuts. So guys, if you're using a HUD at the poker table, check out this stat, and if you're not using a HUD, this is where your observational skills come into play. You want to always be focusing on how people are playing at the table and watching their mannerisms and their tendencies. If somebody is abusing the button, for example, you know there's going to be a lot of bluffs in their range. Let's move on to bluffing sign number 4, which is the story doesn't make any sense. Once again, guys, I've talked about this in multiple videos here in the past on the channel, and basically what this means is that the hand that they are representing does not match their range. This is something I also cover in extensive detail in my brand new Black Rain 79 Elite Poker University training. 17 plus hours of advanced poker lessons, hundreds and hundreds of hand history examples, walking you through how to pick off bluffs just like this right here. Dozens of downloadable cheat sheets. You can enroll right now. I'll have links in the description below, but let's jump into a hand right now. You raise up Ace Jack of Hearts in the cutoff, and a lag loose and aggressive player calls you on the buttons. So once again, we're up against one of these looser players. This is a regular, by the way. This is not one of those recreational players, so we want to put them on a wide range of hands here, but not too wide. This is not somebody who's playing 50% of their hands in a situation like this. They're probably going to be calling us with something like a 20% range. So a lot of Broadway hands, a lot of suited connectors, suited aces, anything sort of speculative, middle pairs, baby pairs, stuff like that. I expect them to re-raise us most of the time with the premium part of their range, meaning ace king, pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket queens, and so on. So that's the range we're putting them on. So let's go see the river in this example here. We're going to assume that you check call the whole way versus a loose and aggressive player on the board of Jack, 7, 5, King, Queen. Now, I think this is an excellent strategy versus these players. Once again, I talk about how to play against this specific player in excruciating detail in my new Elite Poker Training University. And I talk about how this is the proven strategy to beat these kind of players, is often to take a check call line bluffing in a situation like this and run large multi-street call downs, because this keeps their bluffing range as wide as possible. And the reason why we can call all the way down here is, once again guys, is the story doesn't make any sense. Why is this player barreling on a king turn and a queen river? Once again, we already went through this player's range, and these hands don't line up with their likely range. In fact, the leg turns over in this pot ace 8 of diamonds, which makes sense as a bluff here. Had the diamond draw on the flop and chose to keep bluffing the turn and river, but didn't understand that the king and the queen are not in their range, and therefore this is an easy call down for us. Ship the pot. Let's move on to bluffing sign number 3, getting close to the end here, which is a fish on tilt. Guys, when a recreational player is on tilt, honestly, they're just going to start making tons of ridiculous bluffs, even easier to read than the one that we just went through. Basically, what you want to do is just call these players down, because they're going to, again, make all sorts of bluffs that just make no sense at all. You never want to raise in these situations versus these players, though. Once again, you just want to give these players the rope, just like versus the lag player that we just talked about. We don't want to scare them out of the pot, because most of the time they don't have anything. So as a bonus tip though, you want to learn how to put these players on tilt by raising them relentlessly in position. And I talk about this in detail in my free poker cheat sheet, which will be the top link in the description below. Let's move on to sign number 2, that somebody's bluffing you at the poker table, which is a larger than normal bet size. And guys, making a bigger bet than normal is a classic sign of weakness, once again, often with amateurs and recreational players, because amateurs do this all the time to sort of try to scare you out of the pot, and they often do this with a mediocre hand, some sort of bad draw, or nothing at all if they're on tilt, like we just talked about. Guys, I refer to this as the little dog with a big bark syndrome. It's a little tiny dog making a lot of noise, and that's really all that's going on here. Don't fall for it. If a recreational player, especially a player who is on tilt, starts making really big bets, often they don't have much. Often it's a little dog with a big bark. All right, let's move on to sign number 1, that somebody is trying to bluff you at the poker table, and that is that they look you right in the eye. Once again, guys, classic physical tell at the poker table. Somebody acts strong when they're really weak, and of course the opposite also applies when they act meek and scared and don't say anything and won't look at you. Often they got the nuts, and you want to get the heck out of the pot because they have a strong hand. So yeah, acting bold and strong usually means the exact opposite in poker, guys, because deep down they're trying to make it sound like they're big and strong. We've seen these players so many times at the table, these ego-based players, you know, they'll start talking, they'll be like, oh, there's no way you're gonna fold. Just fold your hand now. Stop wasting our time. Guys, these guys are literally turning their hand face up at the poker table. This is the most classic sign. Inside, secretly, they're just praying that you fold your hand. Never fall for these silly tricks at the poker table. So guys, I hope that these 9 bluffing tips help you read their hand better at the poker table. Let me know in the comments below how you read bluffs at the poker table. Like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. And once again, make sure you grab a copy of my free poker cheat sheet. That'll be the top link in the description below. I'll give you my entire strategy to start smashing these small and mid stakes poker games that you play in. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. It's been Nathan Williams with blackgreen79.com.